So what about the other way? It's been an investment property for a long time, and then all of a sudden you go, wow, I want to move into it. What are some of the things that people need to keep in mind to understand the value of the property at the time that they moved in? And what's some other key things that they should keep in mind if that's the case? It was the other way around. It's investment property first. Now I want to make it my principal place of residence.
And that is another beauty of the offset account. So now you just move the offset account from where you were living over to the house you're about to move into, so that there's no interest. So they're just so flexible. But your problem is this property is probably always going to be exposed to capital gains tax. So unless it was your home originally and you only rented it out for 6 years and you're moving back in, you might get away with covering it with your main residence exemption all the way through. But odds are you're going to have a capital gains tax bill unless you manage to die there, because your heirs inherited market value at the date of death if it's your home at that time. So going back to the scenario of you haven't been able to cover it with your main residence exemption until you moved into it, and one day when you sell, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on it. There's no point in getting a market value when you move in, because that's not how it works. It's just a pro rata over the whole time you owned it. Same amount of years as a rental property, and then same amount of years as your main residence. So half the time you owned it, it was covered by your main residence exemption. So half of the capital gain is taxable, and then you get your 50% discount on that. But how do we calculate this capital gain? So you calculate the whole capital gain first, and then you start reducing it. Costs that you have not been able to claim as a tax deduction that are associated with holding the property can increase that cost base we talked about earlier. So obviously the costs like rates and insurance and interest and that while it's rented, you claim as a tax deduction, so that doesn't count. But the costs while you're living there, you haven't claimed a tax deduction for. So as long as you bought that property after the 20th of August 1991, you are allowed to increase the cost base by your rates, your insurance, your interest, any improvements, any repairs, any maintenance. Here's the key word, maintenance. So that means that when you go to Woolies and buy some cleaning materials, when you go and buy some lawnmower fuel, etc., everything to do with maintenance. This is a huge record keeping advantage. And so while you won't get, the dollar you spend on fuel will decrease the capital gain by $1, but then you say, well, half the time it was my main residence and half the time it wasn't. So you're only going to get 50 cents of that dollar to reduce your capital gain. But nevertheless, it's while you were living there that's actually proportionally reducing the gain while you were not. So record keeping.
The value of record keeping is enormous. So let's just underline that. So for those of you that are not detail oriented, you can see it could cost you a little bit of money. So find someone around you who is detail oriented to help you.